Let's be honest. Taking on a DIY electrical project feels great. You save some cash, you learn something new, but here's the deal. Working with electricity is one of those areas where a tiny, tiny mistake can have huge consequences. So today, we're going to walk through the 5 most common errors people make so you can tackle your next project safely and, yeah, with a lot more confidence.
We have to start right here, because this is the single most important thing to wrap your head around. We're not talking about some big movie-style lightning bolt jolt. The amount of current it takes to actually stop your heart is incredibly small. So the stakes, they're literally life and death.
But hey, the goal here isn't to scare you away from doing the work yourself. Absolutely not. It's to empower you. Because with the right knowledge and by following the right procedures, you can absolutely handle these projects with confidence. And most importantly, you can do it safely.
So, mistake number 1, it happens before you even pick up a screwdriver. It's all about making absolutely, positively, 100% sure that the power is off. This is the one step you can never, ever skip.
This little routine, the test, use, verify method, needs to become pure muscle memory. So first, take your voltage tester to something you know has power, like a nearby outlet or a lamp that's on. Does it beep? Great, your tester's working. Step 2, use it on the circuit you think you just turned off. Nothing? Perfect. But, and this is the part people forget, step 3, go right back to that live lamp and check your tester one more time. This simple loop protects you from everything. A dead battery in your tester, a mislabeled breaker, you name it.
All right, so you confirmed the power is off. The next place where mistakes creep in is during the prep work. You got to remember, having the right tools and using them the right way is every bit as important as the wiring itself.
2 little mistakes often happen right here. First, when you're stripping insulation off a wire, don't spin the tool all the way around the copper. Just kind of rock it back and forth a bit. If you spin it, you can easily nick the copper, and that creates a weak spot that can overheat down the road. The second big one is cutting the wires way too short inside the box. That leads to a whole other safety headache we're about to get into.
So, what's the magic number? It's this: 6 inches. The National Electrical Code says you need at least 6 inches of free wire coming into an electrical box. And that's not just some random rule. It gives you enough room to work comfortably and make really solid, secure connections without having to fight with the wires. Too short, and you're just asking for a loose connection.
Which brings us right to mistake number 3, and this one happens at the very heart of the job, actually making the connection. A loose or improper connection is, without a doubt, one of the biggest causes of electrical failures and, even worse, fires.
And when you look at the back of a standard outlet or switch, you're basically presented with a choice. You can do it the fast way, or you can do it the right way. And trust me on this, they are not the same thing.
So here's that choice. On the left, you've got what's called backstabbing, where you just shove the straight wire into a little hole. Yeah, it's fast, but that connection relies on a tiny little spring inside, and those can get weak and fail over time. On the right, you've got the professional standard, forming a little J-hook and wrapping it securely around the screw terminal. This creates a rock-solid mechanical and electrical bond that just isn't going to let go. And creating that perfect hook, it's really simple. You strip about 3/4 of an inch of insulation. Then use your pliers to form a hook that goes in a clockwise direction. Now, why clockwise? Think about it. When you place that hook on the screw and start to tighten it, the screw's motion actually pulls that loop tighter, guaranteeing a fantastic connection every time. Okay, so our connections are solid, they're tight, we're good, right? Well, now we have to talk about where those connections live. This isn't just about keeping things neat and tidy, it's about containing a potential disaster. Here are 3 rules that are absolutely non-negotiable. First, every single wire splice or connection has to be inside a junction box. No exceptions. Those boxes are designed to contain sparks if something goes wrong. Second, if you're using a metal box, you have to use a cable clamp where the wire enters. That little piece prevents the sharp metal edge of the box from slicing into the wire's insulation over time. And third, if a box is sunk too far back in the drywall, use a box extender to make it flush. That's a huge fire safety step. Okay, our 5th and final mistake is a little different. It's less about technique and more about theory. It's about really understanding what a circuit is doing and, more importantly, respecting its limits. You see, a breaker that keeps tripping isn't just an annoyance, it's your house screaming a warning at you. You know, if all the talk about volts and amps seems a bit abstract, this plumbing analogy makes it crystal clear. Think of your wires like pipes. Voltage is like the water pressure, and the circuit breaker is the main safety valve. Trying to run a high-power circuit on a wire that's too small is exactly like trying to force the water from a fire hose through a tiny drinking straw. The straw is going to fail, right? Well, in your walls, that failure means dangerous heat and maybe even a fire.
So what is that limit? For a standard 15-amp household circuit, which is what most of your regular outlets are, the maximum safe load is 1,800 watts. Just remember that number. Add up the wattage of everything you're plugging in, and if you go over that, the breaker should trip. That's its job.
And this brings us to one of the most dangerous DIY mistakes anyone can possibly make. Someone has a 15-amp breaker that keeps tripping, so they think, oh, I'll just swap it out for a bigger 20-amp breaker. That is a guaranteed fire hazard. The new breaker won't trip, but the 14-gauge wire in the wall, which is too small for that load, will get incredibly hot. Never, ever, ever upsize a breaker unless you're also upsizing all the wiring on that entire circuit.
Okay, a few last critical details to lock in. First, polarity. It's simple. The black wire is hot and it always goes to the brass-colored screw. The white neutral wire always goes to the silver screw. Getting this backwards is a big deal. Second, if you have an older home with no ground wire, you can't just pop in a modern 3-prong outlet. The only safe way to upgrade is to install a GFCI outlet and make sure you put that little No Equipment Ground sticker on. You know, all these rules and best practices really lead to the most important skill of all. Sure, the goal of DIY is to learn and save a little money, but the true mark of a smart DIYer is knowing when it's time to put the tools down. If you run into any of these signs, your DIY project is over. Period. A burning smell, scorch marks on outlets, buzzing sounds, a breaker that keeps tripping and you just can't figure out why, these are all urgent stop signs. The money you think you might save is never ever worth the risk to your home and your family. Just put the tools down and call a licensed electrician. So at the end of the day, just finishing the project isn't really the goal. Finishing it safely is. By understanding these common mistakes, everything from verifying the power is off to respecting your circuit's limits, you're not just wiring an outlet, you're ensuring the long-term safety of your home. And that choice, the choice to do it right, is always in your hands.